Victor Yang, Senior Analyst, JLC Network Technology in China, which is where I suppose the big question mark, OPEC Plus meets trying to read the tea leaves on the outlook for China and China demand. We're seeing, factory activity in China continuing to decline month on month. What's the prognosis and the outlook for the Chinese economy and oil demand going into the new year?
Well, for the time being, the market still focused on the quota on the country's oil product exports and crude oil imports. And it's expected to release next year's quota at the end of this month, say for crude imports. And by then, people will judge further how the country's demand is for next year. And for now, the market is quite timid and tepid, I would say. And there's not much change yet because some still expect lower prices, lower crude prices. So the purchase is not strong yet for this moment. And for next year, demand is still expected to grow modestly from this year as we had another large refinery coming online. But it depends a lot on the prices too, as China has built up its stockpile this year, particularly in the first half of this year. So for next year, and as Mike said, declining real estate industry is one factor that is impacting the country's economy. And we still expect some trouble from this sector next year. So for the economy, a lot of international agencies forecast slower growth for next year. Say they forecast 4% to 5% growth for 2024. And instead of over 5% for 2023 on the whole. So this means they expect slower growth for next year. And this will also be reflected in the country's crude demand. We do not expect such fast growth in 2024.
Still digging into the idea of the outlook for China's demand, or at least China's import of oil. We've seen China over recent years and historically, but certainly evident in the recent years, a big appetite for importing oil and putting it into storage or whatever when prices are quite attractive. I mean, we're at $80 on Brent. The big news overnight from OPEC hasn't really changed that, at least not yet. Would these prices be attractive? I mean, typically we're going into we are in a big demand window for China with the Chinese New Year at the end of January. Would there be appetite to go into the market at these prices for the Chinas?
Well, I don't think they are attractive enough yet. Well, but for some, when they need feedstock, those who had not built up stockpiles much yet, they still need to make purchase, that's for sure. So that can support the country's demand to some degree. And for some others, they may choose to buy later on instead of at this moment. But on the whole, demand is still seen to grow modestly next year. And what the country is doing is now trying to restructure its industry. It has been doing so for years, and it's still pushing forward with this project. As you may know, in late October this year, the country announced that it would keep its oil refining capacity at no more than 1 billion, that's 20 million barrels per day by 2025.
Sorry, say that again. It announced what?
It would keep its refining capacity at no more than 1 billion metric ton per year. Which is 20 million barrels per day by 2025. And it would push forward with the goal to upgrade its industrial because of the dual carbon emissions and efforts to keep its energy consumption under control. Also because of its push for renewable energy too. So this will be further and in 2024, which will also make some impact on the country's crude demand.
And Victor, I mean, one of the things seems to be an expectation for, or at least you hear it talked a lot about over the course of this year and even before, I mean, that the Chinese government would engage in a big stimulus to sort of stimulate the economy coming out of the COVID dark days, as most economies in the world did, and America most spectacularly. Still stimulating the economy, you would say, in America coming out of COVID. But China doesn't seem to have really bitten that. Some support here and there, but ultimately no big bazooka stimulus. Is that your reading on the situation? Could that still come?
Well, it has loaded some stimuli, but not strong, very strong ones yet. And you can see from the country's GDP growth over the past 10 years also, it has actually been declining from about 2012 because of the government's efforts to, say, to restructure its industries, because some growth in the past, say at the beginning of the opening policy was not sustainable. And the government realized that, and it needs to upgrade its industries, needs to transform its economy into green growth. So that's what the government has been doing. If we rolls out very large stimuli again, and it might have to go back to, I mean, recounter some of the policies in the past few years and result in overcapacity again in some industries. That's not what that has been, is what it's doing to reduce over the past few years. So it's kind of a contradiction. So it has been moderating the stimuli instead of just trying to get the economy grow fast. That's not what it's doing now.
Victor, looking to the new year, the import quotas, for crude, the export quotas for products from China, do you expect them to be bigger? What's your outlook for the scale? We saw this year a few readjustments through the year. What's the sort of 2024 view on those items?
Well, China has cut its quota on crude imports for independence, for conventional independence over the past year because of its efforts to integrate oil refining and chemical industries. And for next year, we had another large refinery, 400 KPD, coming online in the first half of the year, also a private one. So it's already starting to get quota on crude imports for next year. So we expect the country's crude quota to grow modestly next year. And for oil product exports, it's not expected to grow further because of the country's efforts to achieve its double emission targets and to keep its energy consumption under control. So domestic competition would be stronger.
Go ahead.
I mean, they would be under more pressure to find better, more distribution channels in the domestic market. And now state-owned refineries are under mounting pressure to integrate their oil refining and chemical industries to find better margins. So we'll see increasing integration onto chemical, yes. And this trend is now speeding up.
Just what about the access or the opportunity for discounted Russian and Iranian oil? That was a big opportunity for China this year. Do you expect that to continue?
Well, the discounts on Russian cargoes had weakened over the past 2 months also. And the imports of the Russian cargoes had dropped. So the cargoes from Russia may not be as attractive as in 2023. As for cargoes from Iranian, yes, it can be sold to more countries where the discounts can weaken to And
the
it's not clear yet, they
expectation.
pause, but
Uh,
yeah. Yes, but
we're sorry, your line is cutting and I'm jumping in on top of you. So sorry about that. The imports of we're seeing announcements, Victor, of the U.S. saying about tightening the ability of Iran to export or to violate its sanctions. Do you expect that to have any impact on the Chinese imports of Iranian oil going forward, that they will slow down or stop because of this U.S. policy, or no?
Well, it will impact China's imports from the country. And independents will still prefer such cargoes because of their cost. And they have been struggling to make a profit, so they would still prefer to choose such cargoes. Yes.